Okay, guys, we're on page 154 of our English books. At the top of the page, there's some information about diagramming indirect objects and compound indirect objects. But we already made a video, or I already made a video yesterday of the parts that you need to diagram for on page 153. But right now, we're going to go through problems 1 through 15, and we are going to, or I am going to mark and label. I've already gone through and marked the subject and the verb for each of the sentences, but I'm going to mark and label the direct object and indirect object with you. So I want you to make sure you are on page 154 and following along, making sure that you have the same answers. If you don't, go ahead and change them because you need to diagram these sentences later and you don't want to diagram the wrong thing. So let's jump right in. Problem number 1. Renee gave her friend a strange look. Okay, so the first thing we're doing is we're identifying our verb is an action verb. Okay, so I labeled that. And because it's an action verb, I'm going to look for a direct object. So Renee gave what? Renee gave look. Okay, so look is my direct object. And because there's an indirect object, I'm going to look for an indirect object. So Renee gave look, she gave what? She gave look to who? Or for whom? To her friend. So friend is the indirect object. Remember, the indirect object comes before the direct object. Next, number 2, the principal handed Mr. Kurtz a note. So, handed is an action verb, so I'm going to be looking for a direct object. Handed what? Handed a note. Oh, I circled it. That's okay. So that's my direct object. So now I can look for an indirect object. To whom or for whom? So handed it to Mr. Kurtz. I'm so used to circling them. I shouldn't be. All right, next. So Mr. Kurtz is my indirect object. Number 3, Dad gave Ben and Luke their weekly allowance. Gave is an action verb. So again, I'll be looking for a direct object. So Dad gave what? He gave allowance. So allowance is my direct object. To who? To Ben and Luke. So this is a compound indirect object. So both of these are my indirect object. Next. Aiden threw Chloe the frisbee and she threw it to him. Here we see a compound sentence. So there's 2 subjects and 2 verbs. The comma and the conjunction signify that. So let's go to the first part. Aiden threw. Threw is an action verb, so I'll label it as an action verb. Threw what? Threw frisbee. That's my direct object. To who? To Chloe. And that's my indirect object. So I've labeled this part of the sentence. Now let's go on to the next part. She threw it to me. So threw is another action verb. So through what? Through it, okay, which is in reference to the frisbee. To who or for who? Well, that is answered here in this prepositional phrase, to me. And indirect objects cannot be a part of a prepositional phrase. So there's no indirect object in the second part of that sentence. Next, number 5. Mrs. Hibbert sent her granddaughter a package. So sent is an action verb, so I'm going to look for the direct object. Sent what? Package, which is a direct object. To whom? To granddaughter. So granddaughter is the indirect object. Number 6, I baked Emily a cake for her birthday. So baked is an action verb. So I baked what? Because I'm looking for my direct object, I asked the question what? I baked cake. Cake is a direct object. Now I can ask my second set of questions, which is to whom or for whom. In this case, it's Emily. To or for Emily. That answers the question for whom. Number 7, didn't you write the president a letter? Okay, you is the subject. Did is part of the verb. Not in the contraction is not part of the verb. Make sure you don't have the NT underlined because not is not a verb. Okay, so did write is your verb. This is an action verb, so I label it as such. So you did write what? Letter. To whom or for whom? So it's to the president. And that answers that question. Next, the mother blue jay caught her baby some worms. Blue jay is a compound subject, okay? It's considered one subject, blue jay. Caught is an action verb, so I'll label it action. So I'll look for my direct object. Blue jay caught what? She caught worms. Direct object. For whom? For her babies. So that is my indirect object. Next, mom or dad always reads Ava and me stories before bedtime. Okay, mom or dad. So mom, dad are the subjects. Reads is the action verb. So reads what? Story. That answers the question of what. So story is my direct object. And to whom or for who. So it's for me and for Ava. So both of these are indirect objects. It's a compound indirect object. Next, the man brought his wife some perfume and some flowers, okay? So man is the subject, brought is the verb, which is an action verb. So we can ask the question, what? So man brought perfume, so that's one of them, and flowers. So this is a compound direct object, okay? Because there are direct objects, let's look for an indirect object. So he brought what? Perfume and flowers. For whom? For his wife. So wife is the indirect object. Make sure that is marked. All right, Jackson collects baseball cards and gives his friends the duplicates. So here we have a compound verb. Both of these verbs are action verbs. So let's mark him. So Jackson collects what? He collects cards. To whom or for whom? That is not answered. So there's no indirect object in this part of the sentence. So let's go on to this one. Gives what? He gives duplicates. So duplicates is the direct object. To who or for whom? Well, he gives it to his friends. So this part of the sentence does have an indirect object. Next one. I guess there's plenty of room here. All right. Didn't Jesus teach his disciples a lesson about prayer? Okay, Jesus is the subject. Did teach is the verb. Not, the contraction is not part of the verb. And this is an action verb. So Jesus did teach what? Well, Jesus did teach lesson. So lesson is the direct object. I'll go ahead and write that down. And to whom or for whom? To his disciples. So disciples is the indirect object. Next, number 13. James lent his brother a baseball bat. So lent is an action verb. So I go ahead and mark that. And so James lent what? He lent bats. Bat is the direct object. To who? To his brother. Brother is the indirect object. All right, just a couple more. At the store, my father consoled the tearful boy and bought him a soda. So father is the subject. Consoled is the verb. So consoled what or who? Consoled boy. So boy is the direct object. To what or for what is not answered. So there's no indirect object here. But we have another verb, action verb. So bought what? Bought soda. Direct object. To who or for whom? For him. Him is the indirect object. And then our last one. I sent my friend in Chicago some information about my home state in Virginia. Sent is an action verb. Sent what? He sent information. Okay. To who or for who? For his friend or to his friend is the indirect object, okay? Make sure you guys have marked all problems 1 through 15 correctly. If you haven't, go ahead and rewatch the video and mark them correctly as you go. All right, guys, thank you.